welcome to this special RSPA Retail IT Community Roundtable, What VARs Want from Vendors. I'm Jim Roddy, the Vice President of Sales and Marketing for the Retail Solutions Providers Association. Thanks so much for tuning in today, and thanks to everybody who's joined us for today's roundtable. For those folks who aren't familiar with the RSPA, it's North America's largest community of VARs, software developers, vendors, and distributors in the retail, restaurant, and grocery verticals. And we're fit for any organization that's serious about growth in those markets. Many companies have been members for decades, and we also frequently add startup tech companies on a regular basis because we accelerate their growth and they see the massive ROI that RSPA membership offers. We have a lot of members on this call today, and we really appreciate you joining us. So if you're not a member, but you're serious about growth in the retail IT channel, you can email membership@gorspa.org. Want to share a little bit of background through our members before we get rocking and rolling here. So first we see Tim Shane, the president of King Business Services Corp, talking about the RSPA reseller and ISV community. He talks about you won't feel alone in the sea of small IT businesses as an RSPA member. Next, we have Andrea Roberts from another reseller, Teletech Systems, talking about how the RSPA community has definitely sustained their longevity and helped the business staying in the know of the latest trends. So the community, the RSPA Education Academy, those are helpful as well. We also have preferred rates on HR services, and you see Jen Petrilla from ISV J3POS using GMS, which is a third-party company that the RSPA has a relationship with. They were able to save on their healthcare costs and also outsource their HR department there as well. I touched on the RSPA Academy Education earlier. Brett Bennett, who is president of Positive Technology, who's a reseller, and OpSuite, who's an ISV, talks about how his organization was in deep need of vertical business training, and the RSPA gave them exactly what they needed. Brian Tuberman from STCR, who's a grocery reseller based in New York, his group took advantage of an RSPA professional development workshop, and you can see he says not only did his team enjoy it, but they got something out of it to help them improve. And then the last success story that we want to share here, Thomas Greenman from Skurla's in Anchorage, Alaska. They took advantage of the Customer Health Checkup Merchant Survey. That's where the RSPA helps you as a VAR or ISV survey your merchants. It's almost essentially a turnkey solution. Takes about a half hour for you to meet with an RSPA representative and move forward on this. And you can see that the survey provided his company with the actionable customer feedback that they needed. So wanted to do that through the success stories, and also if I can now turn it over to Ashley Nagy, RSPA Member Services Manager, and she's going to talk about a couple new benefits, starting off with the RSPA Solutions Center. Ashley.
Thanks, Jim. So the RSPA Solutions Center is our online platform that we have put together for our members to be able to stay connected. While we might not be able to see each other face-to-face right now, one thing is certain, there are still connections to be made and new solutions to pick up. So each of our vendor members has the opportunity to showcase their solutions on the Solutions Center, having their own vendor hub page where they can share things like their value proposition to the community, as well as products and services, videos, white papers, case studies, and key contact information. So this is a great resource for you to take advantage of. And if you're a reseller looking for a new solution partner or to see what's new out there, this is a great place to find those solution providers.
Great, thank you. And then Ashley, can you also tell us about the new RSPA Academy Education Symposium?
Yeah, so we're really excited about the RSPA Academy Education Symposium. It's going to be held August 26th and 27th online. It'll be 2 half-day sessions filled with high-value education, covering 6 education tracks and about 20-plus education sessions that are going to be focused on VAR and ISV executive sessions, next-gen technologies, customer experience, sales, security, and marketing. Jim and I have been able to participate in several of those previews, and really good content and a lot of positive opportunities coming out of the symposium that your peers will be sharing with you. So great opportunity to take advantage of for only $39.
Great, and so thank you very much, Ashley. So everybody listening to this live, participating in the roundtable, you've got a little bit over a week left to take advantage of that $39 early bird special, and you can see you can access it through gorspa.org/education -symposium. And so if you're listening to this on demand, you want to hurry up and make sure that you jump on board and you register for the RSPA Academy Symposium. And again, for more information on the RSPA, you can go to our website, gorspa.org, or you can email membership@gorspa.org. All right, so just a couple more things before we get started. Just want to say a big thank you to the RSPA 2020 Platinum sponsors. They're the folks who make this education possible. They're the folks who make the roundtables possible, the Solution Center, the Symposium. And so big thanks to BlueStar, Heartland, ScanSource, and Shift4 Payments. Really appreciate your support in 2020 of not just of the RSPA, but the entire retail IT channel. All right, before we open up the floor, let's turn it over to RSPA CEO John Kirk to get us started. John, if we can turn it over to you for a minute, please. Glad to have you here today.
Okay, thank you, Jim. I appreciate it. You know, again, just a couple of short comments around what we're focused on. You know, when you think about the power of connections, I think we've all felt it at the RSPA in some fashion, and some more than others, but we've all felt it. We know that the connections are second to none, and the relationships are second to none. So in this time of COVID-19, we are extremely focused on making sure we keep the connections, just like today, the main event, because it's so critical to us. And you know, when you think about being together and being together like we are today in today's environment, it makes all the difference in the world. So there's really kind of two sides of the coin. It's where we are and where we're headed. And right now, where we are around a pretty powerful roundtable with some great panelists to kind of help be a catalyst, so to speak, on some really good dialogue we're going to have here and some lessons learned. But where we're going, I think, is hopeful. When you look at some of the data around the vaccines, it's pretty powerful. I saw a data set from the World Health Organization just recently, and there are 140 candidates right now in a developmental phase, 140 in preclinical testing. There are 19 in phase 1, when that's where they actually start testing for safety with people. And then phase 2, there are 11 candidates, and that's more people, bigger sampling. And what's really exciting, phase 3, which is the final phase of a vaccine, there are 3 candidates. So we're moving very quickly. I think there's good reason to have hope that, although as powerful as this roundtable is and this kind of setting is, the prospects for a vaccine are very real when you consider the number of candidates we have right now, and even if you just focus on 3 that are in the final stages. So what we've got to do together as a community, we got to first remember how powerful these connections are. We've got to embrace where we are. We got to keep them alive, keep them the main event, keep them thriving now more than ever. But we've also got to maintain hope, because we will be together again. I was listening to some of the chatter before we kicked off our webinar, and there were some comments about, I haven't seen yet a trade show. I'm used to seeing yet trade shows. Well, we're going to be together again. We've got reason for hope, and we've got one heck of a community that can weather the environment we're in right now. And we're not going to bet against science. We're going to bet with science, and we will be together again. So thanks to the panelists, thanks to all those that have attended right now. It's up to 99 and counting. And we look forward to a great connection today in the best forum we could have today. And this is a very powerful roundtable. So thank you for partaking, and thank you for helping us keep the connections alive, because they're what makes the RSPA what the RSPA is. So Jim, I'll turn it back over to you, and let's hear from the folks that really matter.
Great, thank you very much, John. And so just to frame this conversation up, this will be an open forum information sharing discussion. Please note that the views and opinions expressed during this roundtable are those of the participants and don't necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Retail Solutions Providers Association. Also, we've asked everyone on today's call to avoid sales pitches, and we're going to identify them when they speak for the benefit of our listeners. And again, for the folks who are going to participate in the roundtable, feel free to weigh in with your questions now, and then we will call on you after we talk with our featured guests here. So please welcome Melanie Tawil, CEO and co-owner of SwipeTrack Solutions, a reseller in San Antonio. Rick Feuling, the CEO of RITE and Cloud Retailer, is a VAR and ISV organization northwest of Minneapolis. Bill Fultz is the VP of POS at Heartland, and Jason Firment is the Director of POS and Payments at BlueStar. We welcome all of them. And again, they're going to be breaking the ice for us and get our conversation going today. So Melanie, why don't you lead us off and tell us from your perspective, what do VARs want from vendors?
Hi, everyone. It's so nice to be here today. I think from our perspective at SwipeTrack, what they want is a resource for connection. It's important that we remind our own staff that a lot of the times are our vendors' point of contact for a lot of how to navigate this. I don't even want to call it a post-COVID world because obviously it's not going anywhere, but how are we going to redefine what normal is? And so this is a really fantastic opportunity for the retail industry to redefine what exactly technology will look like inside either brick and mortar or online stores. So that's honestly what we've been hearing a lot from. And so we're here to serve as a resource to help them navigate these new waters that we're all in.
Got it. Great. Thank you, Melanie. Rick, what is your perspective on what VARs want from vendors, either in this, current COVID-19 crisis phase or in general?
I'm going to speak to in general. So we have the luxury of having spent about 8 years of our history as a VAR, and now we're a VAR ISV hybrid. But to me, it's VARs are looking for a product they can build their business on. Even COVID didn't help, but there's so much uncertainty in the industry. Acquisitions, for example, if somebody buys the point of sale company that produces, my core product, the game changes, overnight. The rules of the game change, and then if it's a cloud-based system, who owns the customer? How do I deal with that? Who owns the data? How do I deal with that? Really, when I kind of look in the faces of some of my, the people in the industry that we've, that's the question. How do I find a product that I have the certainty around that I can build my business on? And there's some people doing some interesting things. Hunter Allen and the Cinetouch thing, where it's basically a group of VARs coming together to take ownership in a product. I think that's a super interesting way to kind of cope with that, but that's the challenge that they faced, and that's how they dealt with it. For us, we built our own product, which is a slog. It's super interesting, and the potential upsides are huge, but not an easy hill to climb. And then for those in the other group, it's figuring out, how do I partner with somebody who I can rely on and build my business on top of.
Great, thank you. And that's what it seems a lot to be, where resellers want to build their business with a vendor that's really bringing some stability to them, some sort of certainty. Is that essentially what you're saying, Rick?
Exactly.
Got it. Great. Thank you. And like you said, developing your own intellectual property, the rewards can be great, but they're not unfair, right? You got a lot of miles to go before you're able to get there. So,
a lot of miles. So you're going to bleed through your shoes before you get to the destination.
Got it. Great. Well, thank you, Melanie. Thank you, Rick, for starting off and sharing the reseller's perspective. Before we turn it over to a vendor and distributor, again, the folks who are on this call live, if you can start submitting your questions or just let us know that you want to speak, we'll start lining you up. And again, we want to hear from the community. We are now up to 101 participants as of right now. So we'd love to hear from folks. We know that we have individuals here. Love to hear from you. So Bill, can you give your perspective as the VP at Heartland? What do you hear that VARs want from vendors?
Yeah, I think what we're seeing, Jim, across the VAR community is that they're really looking during these times for organizations that are going to have a strength position, that have staying power. There's lots of folks who have cut their organizations down, but there's equally a number of organizations that have ramped up, and they realize this is a time to take a leadership position. I think a lot of VARs are looking at that. They're making their choices for the future based on those decisions on who's going to remain strong, and ultimately give them products that they're going to be able to address the market with, because ultimately without a product or a solution that the market is looking for, VARs don't have a whole lot to go with their vendors. And so having that position, I think, is really something that is being scrutinized more and more. We see lots of questions from people of, what have you done to bring more development into your solution sets? What are you doing to bring more business development or marketing? Not so much what you're cutting, because those are the organizations I think that VARs are keen to learn more and get closer to. And I think one of the other things that VARs are trying to do, and these times I think just sort of bring it out even more so, is how consistent is the VAR in their approach with their resellers? Are they remaining committed to the mission? Are they vacillating because the market's changing and all of a sudden the VAR isn't as interesting? Or they're changing distribution models? And so I think that the old saying goes, you really find the true characters or merits in tough times. I think VARs are very keen to what their vendors are doing, and are they remaining loyal, flexible in their solutions, flexible to what the end merchants are looking for, but consistent in their commitment to the community and keeping those connections strong. Those are the things we've seen messaged over the last few months from the general community.
Got it. Thank you for that. And it sounds like part of what you're saying is they're looking for a stable organization, like you said, with staying power, but also somebody committed to the channel as well, that the channel doesn't become an afterthought for them, that it's always front and center. Am I understanding that, Bill?
Absolutely. And the VAR community in these times, I think, is really showing its value. Having the local level connections is something that no one can do better than a VAR channel. And yeah, it's exciting to work through those things with them.
Got it. Great. Thank you. Jason, what's your take? What VARs want from vendors? Again, you get an interesting perspective as a distributor. You get to see into all those different channels and avenues. What's your take on this subject?
Yeah, Jim, as you mentioned, being a distributor partner, we see a lot of different angles as it relates to manufacturers, from a hardware perspective and a software perspective. Three things that I would like to touch on would be education, transparency, and partnership. So right now, more than anything, the education to our VAR community is the utmost important of what we need to do, is giving the information that comes from our vendors and educating them on the technology that they have available and how they can implement it into their business model and how they can translate that to their customers. A lot of distributors out there today and a lot of the other software partners and manufacturers do a good job of educating, our customer base, but at the same time, it's of the utmost important that we continue to strive on being able to provide that education on the technology that's out there, especially in the COVID-19 world, in the post-COVID-19 world, where there's a lot of technologies that these folks are going to need to implement not only today, but the customers are going to need for the future. These are things that they wanted or were on a wish list for the future, but now they're going to be in need. So the education is the utmost important. The second thing that I want to touch on was transparency. You know, as a distributor, we try to do a good job of communicating, you know, what is happening from the manufacturer's world. But the transparency that needs to be out there is what's happening with that product today, what is coming out in the future, what's going to help them establish their businesses and evolve in this COVID-19 and post-COVID-19 world, whether it's there or not. But the transparency to understand that, hey, you know, we have these products that are coming out. These products are going to end of life, and make them aware of those types of things, because a lot of our customers today have, you know, massive rollouts. Some of them might just be SMB and one-off, but a lot of times there's a rollout, and they need to have transparency to when these products are going to end of life, whether it's from a manufacturer standpoint or even from like Heartland standpoint with the software products that they have. What updates are they having that's going to evolve and have that transparency to the reseller to where that product is going in the future. And then, of course, always the partnership. There needs to be a communication that happens between the vendors, the distributors, the software partners, everybody involved. That's a two-way street. You know, we can't just have, you know, folks delegating what's going to go through the channel, but, you know, have that feedback coming back from the VARs who are in the trenches and understand exactly what is happening on the streets and what the customers are needing, and push that feedback back to the software partners, the vendors, everybody that's involved in the channel to help them produce and be able to get that product out there to the end user. So a partnership, whether it's from a communication standpoint, a marketing standpoint, delivery standpoint, that needs to be a two-way street that everybody in this channel is involved in, where we can all kind of pull together and say, hey, this is all the communication we've got, and we're going to feed that back to our customer, who is obviously, you know, the end all be all to make sure that they're happy doing what they're doing.
Great, fantastic. Thank you for that perspective, Jason. And before we turn it over to the group, Melanie, why don't you bring us full circle on this featured guest group that started us off? What jumped out to you from what Rick, Bill, and Jason said in terms of, and what stands out to you as a reseller? Product certainty, organizations with staying power, that the channel's a big part of the mission, education, transparency, partnership, products. Anything of those that jump out to you, or is it like, yes, give me all of the above?
So all of the above, one, but I think transparency and education, and also my favorite keyword to come out of everything has been pivot. Pivot might be the word of the year, the business word of the year, mostly because obviously none of us budgeted for this. And so technology, while we were already working on a lot of this stuff, we had to go in warp speed on a lot of our software development that we've been putting out there. Some of this stuff was on the pipeline about, you know, a year, 2 years out. And now that we're seeing a lot of the new mandates that are coming out from around the country, I think it's important for VARs to remember that we also need to focus on what's going on big picture to make sure that we can hit up our clients the way that they best need us to. So one of the things that we've been seeing a lot get implemented throughout the municipal mandates is touchless payment. And I was honored to serve on the City of San Antonio's Economic Transition Task Force, and that's something that I really did push for all retail, is to do as much as possible touchless payment. It's very difficult to move people over, and so it's not only educating our vendors, but it's also educating the public. I think that's one thing that we forget a lot, is also we do need to educate the public that this is a safety issue. And so making sure that we keep those channels open, because obviously this is another thing that we've been seeing a lot of in this whole in this together thing, but we truly are all in this together, because we can't have a weak link in any of this.
Got it. Amen. Well said. Yeah, there has to be a true partnership, start to finish, all the way through, in order to help merchants out, in order for our entire channel to thrive in the midst of this crisis and beyond. So, well, thank you, Melanie, Rick, Bill, and Jason. And we're going to ask you guys to stay on, because what we have is it looks like 4 folks have lined up with input, and some of them are questions for the panel. And so first, we're going to start with Jake West from Vend, a software developer. And so Jake had a couple questions, if you could share those. One was related to about payment pricing, related to ISOs, and then you were also curious in terms of, do the VARs want a demo systems, or do they want to be referral partners? So Jake, can you ask your questions to the panel, and we'll see who wants to weigh in. Jake West from Vend.
Oh, all right, now I'm off mute. Thank you, Jim. Yeah, so 2 questions. The first is just the trend of VARs moving into handling payments. Just curious from the panel if you've seen any trends in terms of the percentage of VARs that are now taking payments in-house and becoming payments agents or ISOs, so that they're able to better monetize payment process.
So pause there. Who from the panel wants to take a stab at that?
So I'll take first crack, Jim. So hey, Jake,
Okay, thanks,
good to
Bill.
hear from you. I don't think that we're seeing any large swings either way. Most VARs have cast where they want to be, whether they want to be in the ISO space or in the referral partnership end of the payments ecosystem. And so we haven't seen any dramatic shifts in that. That's shaken loose in the last 5 years, and but we're not seeing any great movements one way or the other. Things have sort of stabilized.
Great, thank you. Anyone else on our panel want to weigh in on that question?
This is Jason. I'm going to kind of add on to that. Is I would agree that we haven't seen a big shift, but from a distributor standpoint, we've seen a shift into how we can implement solutions that are contactless, right? I mean, obviously, we're in an environment where that needs to happen, but the reality is this is going to be real life moving forward. It's not just today. It's just not for the next few months or to the end of the year. It's going to be the environment that we're going to have to live in moving forward. So how can the VARs, implement a payment solution that is contactless, that creates separation, but also is affordable, right? I mean, right now, we're looking at environments where a lot of hospitality and retail owners do not have the ability to fund this new technology, but it's not more of a wish list, a want list, it's a need list moving forward. So they need to have this technology, and it's up to us as partners to figure out a way to put that into the reseller's hand and put it into the community's hand of how they can buy this technology in an affordable fashion that's going to maximize their business moving forward.
Great, thanks, Bill and Jason. Jake, can you jump to your second question about referrals versus partners demoing the products?
Yeah, just curious on the feedback from the panel. So in terms of when a VAR is approaching a merchant discussing their overall value prop, the concept of demoing point of sale software, pulling in a partner with whatever point of sale partner they work with by vertical. Curious on feedback, if again kind of on that trends piece, if the panel sees that VARs are still demoing and selling point of sale, or if they're leveraging the assets from a point of sale partner in terms of providing additional resources on the demo and install, pieces like that.
Let's go to Rick and then Melanie on our panel next. So yeah, Rick, what's your answer to Jake's question?
Sure. So I think when a VAR is initially engaging an ISV, they're gonna have high expectations for how much they can lean on that ISV to execute demos on their behalf. Basically, they're flies on the wall. And what we've seen is that when people start getting, once a few deals are closed, they start getting a little bit more comfortable. They have their hands involved in implementation. They can start taking on more of that themselves, though, most will lean on their vendor as much as they can, and they should, right? Leverage your vendors. Yeah, I mean, initially, heavy involvement in assisting with demos has been my experience, and then you can kind of slowly push people out of the nest.
Yeah, that makes sense. Thanks, Rick.
Yep.
Great. Melanie, what's your take on Jake's question? What do you prefer?
100% agree. Again, we follow the same process. We're still doing demos right now through Zoom with our vendors, and whenever we're going on meetings now in this new world. So, but we found it to be really helpful, and everybody becomes more knowledgeable throughout both systems. So both vendors and VARs end up becoming it's a symbiotic relationship to work with each other.
Great, thank you, Melanie, and thank you, Jake, for your questions. If anybody else wants to weigh in on an answer to Jake's question, feel free to drop something in the question. We'll be able to call on you in a little bit, or you can just share your answer, and we're happy to do that for you. It's also making me think we're going to be so rusty after, like Melanie said, once we get to a true post-COVID-19 world, might have to do some Rspa Academy education webinars on how to shake hands, right, and how to do all those things that, seems like we haven't done in forever and ever. So I know we're all definitely looking forward to getting back to that. So next question is from Venkat from iCashOut. So Venkat, you had a question about merchants in the COVID-19 world. So can you please ask your question, please?
Hello guys, how are you all today? The question I had was, sooner or later, we're going to be getting out of the COVID world, and significant amount of changes has happened because of the COVID, mainly around contactless payment or ordering online, picking up at the store or by the curb. So what are you guys hearing from the merchants or from the customers as to how are they preparing for the future of COVID, and from whatever they have learned in the current COVID changes, what is that? How is their business model going to change? And is there anything for companies like us, which is being an ISV, that we need to be aware of?
Good question. Thanks, Venkat. Who on the panel wants to take a stab at that first?
So I'll lead off, Jim. So it's a great question, and it's one that we ask ourselves all the time, of what does it look like? And I think that the analogy that I've tried to work with our product groups and our resellers with is it's going to be diverse, and it's going to remain diverse. So we're seeing obviously plenty of messaging and articles in the news and in our industries around the digital transformation to online e-commerce. You can throw in a number of buzzwords, and it's absolutely true. There is a flocking to the online capabilities, and VARs play a very important part of that. And I don't think that they're eliminated from that by any means, at least from the things that we've seen, because the merchants need guidance in that, because it's a brave new world for many of them. They're now having to exist in that space, and of course, delivery services and all sorts of things in the hospitality space start to enter into that. But again, I call back to diversity, because it's not going away. There is still brick and mortar is still very present. We're still doing a fair amount of volume, although reduced, in the brick and mortar space, and so that will continue. And the analogy I use is if you think of we first had cash, obviously, is how we did commerce, and then came along personal checks, and then credit cards, and everyone was going to use a credit card. Then it became debit cards, and so on and so forth. And where do we find ourselves today even is just a very diverse payment ecosystem. And I think that complexity is going to remain with us, whether it's retail or hospitality. The blends, and they'll differ by region, they'll differ by industries, and merchants are going to need VARs to help navigate that. The technology footprints in the landscape has only gotten more complex, and we don't see that changing in the near future.
Great, thank you. Yeah, the role of the trusted advisor is going to become even more crucial as we, continue to slog, to use Rick's word, slog through 2020 and get into 2021. Anybody else on the panel want to weigh in on Venkat's question?
This is Rick. I've got a kind of a simple answer to that. So the way we're looking at this is probably about half of the changes that are taking place in the world generally will stick. There's a lot of experimentation going on right now to try and solve the new problems we're having, whether it's point of sale, retail, business in general, personal. Fred Wilson, a venture capitalist who sends out a daily kind of blog, super smart guy. I've adopted his point of view, which is half of this is going to pull back and half of it's going to stick, but life's definitely not going to go back to normal.
Great, thank you, Rick, and Venkat, thank you for weighing in with that question. Let's go next to Scott McClanahan from Simple POS. And Scott, you and I have known each other for years, and one of the many reasons that I like you is you do business in Erie, Colorado, and I live in Erie, Pennsylvania. So the only two Eries in the United States are being represented here today. So happy to turn to you. So Scott, what is your question or thought that you wanted to share with our roundtable today?
Yeah, I just wanted to weigh in as a VAR. As to what VARs want from vendors, because I think it's always interesting to hear the perspective from the vendors themselves, but I think it's also interesting to hear from the guys like us that are actually out in the field. And, during this COVID situation, it's been interesting because we've seen how various vendors have handled things, everything from having to move all their staff to work from home overnight almost to, and I won't promote anybody specifically, but BlueStar has been amazing in still being able to get equipment out and things like that, as an example. The big thing that I think, and somebody mentioned it earlier, is partnership. And to me, what that partnership means is that we're all in this together. We win together and we lose together. And so when a vendor recognizes that, just simple things like getting us information on time or providing good support in the case of maybe an ISV or a merchant payment partner or, whatever industry you're in, recognizing that you taking the effort to put the effort into your team so that you can support our team better, realizing that most likely when we're calling in, we're not the same education level as an end user, so we don't need to waste all the time going through the basics. We've got a level 2 technician calling in because we've already done that with the customer. Little things like that make a huge difference in the partnership. Somebody mentioned education earlier, and I think it's important, but I think many times vendors seem to get tied up on two things, and I've had this discussion individually with a lot of people through the years, and that is education and marketing. And I think that where vendors really miss the mark is, to us as VARs, education is not just putting on a webinar once a week and telling us about your newest product or what your greatest offering is or how we should go sell more of your product. Education is doing things like getting, roundtables together. It's getting information out there that's going to actually help us in our day-to-day stuff. Maybe education is, hey, here's some technical information for your team so that you know that this problem is occurring and here's how we fix it so we can avoid a support call. That to me is true education. I think so many VARs miss that. And the same thing with marketing. Marketing to me is not, here's a bunch of, logos and here's some email templates you can use, here, go have a good time with our marketing kit. While that's important, a true partner wants to help us succeed as a business. So they're going to offer programs such as lead generation. They're going to offer programs maybe such as social media content that we can easily push out through our channels and share with our customers. Maybe they're going to offer, the email templates is good, but a lot of times it sort of stops there. And I just wanted to kind of bring that to light and there's not a big enough room so we can't hear the amens, but hopefully there's some other vendors or some other VARs out there that are kind of saying the same thing, because I really think vendors miss the mark when it comes to that.
All right, thank you, Scott. We have 2 VARs on the panel, and again, a vendor and distributor who I guess wants to say amen to what Scott said, or who wants to kind of weigh in and maybe answer some of the points that he brought up and address those.
This is Rick. I'll start the amen. You know, we should put Scott's picture up here on the screen right now. That was spot on.
Yeah, I would agree. I would agree with what Rick said. I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, it's all about a partnership, and you know, I appreciate, you know, every accolade that we can get from a partner that says, hey, we're providing good information. From an education standpoint, it's not just about the speeds and feeds, it's how do you go out there and sell this product? How can the vendors, the software partners, your distributors, everybody that's involved in the channel go out and help you sell this product and make it simple for you to sell this product? So well said, well said.
Hey, this is Melanie. So I want to actually address the marketing component that you brought up. That is exactly why I told my marketing staff that I did not want to be coming off as selling products during this time, because I kept my ear to the ground to the entire time, listening to restaurateurs, retailers, and actually asking them, what do you need? And a lot of them kept saying, we need information. What is happening? And so that's why a lot of our marketing, either on Twitter, has just been more of a, what is working in this certain area could possibly work for you in your arena sort of thing. So we actually haven't done a single ounce of selling on our social media feeds.
Got it. Great. Thank you, Melanie. Anything else, Scott? So thanks for weighing in. Anything else you wanted to share with the group or add to the comments?
No, I appreciate the comments.
Got it. Great. No, thanks for joining us. And just so you know, Scott, before you go, we did get an amen from Chuck and Lenan Lano outside of Minneapolis. They're a reseller based there, retail and IT consulting. So you did get an amen. So thank you very much for weighing in. Yeah, really appreciate that. Thanks. Good talking to you today.
I think you could. I think you could sum it up by just having the. I think you could sum it up by just having the vendors put themselves in our shoes, you know, and think about, if you're the VAR going through your day-to-day basis, what could somebody else do to make your life easier, you know? And that's really what it comes down to. And to me, that's what a partner is.
Yep, very good. Thank you. It's one of my favorite sayings is there's no substitute for a competent person getting closer to situations. So if you're a channel chief, a channel manager, a vendor, an ISV who's on this call, the closer that you get with your resellers from a partnership standpoint, not just talking about the direct problems that you're going to solve or taking care of merchant A, B, or C, but having some more of those holistic conversations. Again, I won't call on any vendors in particular, but there's some that come to mind right now, and I really see them arm in arm, elbow to elbow with their partners, and they're the ones who are getting back to our original points that some folks raised. They're the ones who have strong products because they're able to adapt, that they have a lot of certainty, and they're clearly serving the channel, and the resellers are part of their mission statement. So great, Scott, thanks for weighing in. Let's go back to, there was an original point, and Sherry Bryant from Paid and Ship Time wants to weigh in here. And so Sherry, you said that you had some information about VARs and ISVs getting into the payment space and PayFax, payment facilitators. Yeah, so
sure.
Sherry, yeah, can you jump in? Chris, can we unmute Sherry Bryant?
Hi, Jim.
Are you there, Sherry? Hello.
Yeah, I'm here. How are you doing?
I'm outstanding. Nice to talk to you again.
You too. It's been very lonely. So these are great. Yeah, so, you know, I am working with paid.com, and we are actually getting ready to launch our new product. We've been in the shipping business for so long, for 11 years, and, you know, we have our heroic support. They're really good at that, and now we're launching an e-commerce product. But having to, we are a PayFac. We're getting into the ISV VAR network now. We do have partners on the shipping side, and I can agree with Scott. I think that's definitely an amen, because he articulated that very well. And being a PayFac and what we're going to be offering, and I'm not sure with the VARs and ISVs, with the PayFac world, we will have instant onboarding where somebody can sign up on a website and they can have an account instantly. Is that something VARs and ISVs are looking for on the payment?
I didn't know she worked for a PayFac.
Oh, go ahead.
No, that's okay. I'm hoping somebody can, Chris, if you can mute somebody there, that'd be great. So you were saying, Sherry?
Yeah, on the PayFac side, when we do have our offering and we're looking for VARs and ISVs, is instant onboarding with payments something you're looking for, where if you walk into a brick and mortar store, or if they need e-commerce right away, they need a merchant account right away, is that something that is a big ticket item for them? Do they want that instantly, or are they willing to wait a couple weeks to get approved and all of that? That's my question, because the PayFac world has come around now once again, and that they've been around for a while, but everybody has kind of wanted to become the PayFac now. So, is that something that you guys are looking at? Do people want that?
Yeah.
Or is it a need, especially now with COVID and, maybe accounts being closed because their business wasn't doing well? How is that, and how can we help these retailers, with our services to, get the word out that we can, provide a solution for them that can help, and save them money and time?
Good question, Sherry. Who on the panel wants to take that first?
It was kind of a mouthful.
Jason, Bill, Rick, Melanie, any need that you're seeing for that instant boarding that Sherry was talking about that payments facilitators provide?
I guess my other question would be, because
if you can hold on 1 second, Sherry. Anybody on the panel want to answer that one first?
Sure, I'll provide a little bit of color we're seeing on our side. So PayFacs absolutely are out there. I don't think they're necessarily new. Where we see the most traction with them is a lot of the franchises that we do, both in retail and hospitality, are looking to add that capability to their organization, which is interesting. So, and we're seeing this come even into the smaller brands, like call it 15, 20 store locations, where they're trying to figure out how do they become, the payment of record. So we are seeing some movement in it, but it's really more in the chain and franchise space that we're seeing.
Well, and Bill, it's really hard to do. Like the analogy I've always used for an ISV who wanted to go from, integrating payments to becoming a PayFac, I said it's like having a daycare center and then saying, it would be good for our business model if we had babies born here, right? And you're like, well, we're still dealing with babies, but you're like, man, you got to get doctors and nurses and infrastructure and all sorts of stuff like that. I guess if you can just enlighten our audience who might not be as familiar with the PayFac model, like there are advantages to it financially, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's extremely complex, and a lot of people who say they want to be a PayFac, it's very much they don't know what they're actually asking for. It is a level of complexity that is extremely difficult to achieve and do it at the right scale. The risks, the underwriting requirements and things are very, very difficult. And I'll put it into perspective. To do it at scale, Heartland is a large organization. We struggled to pull it off at scale. It wasn't until TSYS and we merged with TSYS that we were actually able to reach that. And so it's not for the faint of heart.
Right. Oh, I totally agree. I totally agree.
Sherry, can you ask your second question quickly? We have some other folks who are lined up. If you can pose your next question, please.
I think Bill answered all my questions. I think that's good.
Oh, perfect. Wonderful. Well, thank you. Sherry, thank you for weighing in. Hope to cross paths with you at an industry event at some point in the near future when it's safe. Thank you. So next we're going to move to Ramon Mendoza from True Rating, and he had a question about being a third-party value-added service provider in terms of working with ISVs and VARs. Ramon, glad to have you join us today. Good to talk to you again.
Hey, Jim, likewise, and thanks for having me, and hello, panel. Just a quick question. So some of the things that we do, we make it as easy as possible for our VARs and ISV partners to basically be a referral partner. You know, coming from that side of the business before my current role, I know how hard it is for you guys to stay on track, stay focused, and keep your sales team doing what they need to do. So we've taken that burden off. So outside of the referral model that we have, without going into details, what are some of the other things that are helpful during this time to these VARs and ISVs that are out there that we could provide to them?
Good question. Who from the panel wants to take a shot at that in terms of what help can be provided to VARs and ISVs, in terms of merchant outreach?
I'll chime in quick. Hey, Ramon. So, if you're talking about recruiting more VARs, helping them stay on track and staying focused, you said it, that's huge. If I put my VAR hat on and I'm thinking about evaluating a new vendor, that's a big deal. That's a big problem for us. Like, if it's not on my top 10 biggest problems to solve, it's not going to get any attention, no matter how easy it is. So I actually kind of think, in terms of recruiting new VARs, that staying focused, I think that's the nut that you have to crack. You have to find a way to get in that top 10 list to get their attention. So that's speaking to like recruiting new partners, I guess.
No, that makes perfect sense. So we're trying to make sure that, obviously because of our platform, we're able to see what's going on. And to Melanie's point, keeping your ears to the ground and saying, what can we do to help? So we've been able to do that and compile a bunch of information. So that's kind of the stuff that we're using now is, hey, look, we're able to get information unlike anybody else. So we're taking that information, using it for good. And here you go, Mr. VAR, ISV, partner, whoever, and you can use that for your outreaches, for your social media, for webinars, if you want us to help and educate the merchants. So that's kind of the path we're on right now, but always open to ideas and suggestions to help.
Hey, this is Jason from BlueStar. Good to hear your voice, Ramon.
Likewise, Jason.
Hey, at the end of the day, it comes to, some of the 3 points that I put out there was partnership. Leverage your partnership with your vendors, your distributor, your software partners to get that message out there, right? I mean, we have a lot of marketing activities that we can do. We have marketing funds that are available through our partners, and let's get the message out there at the end of the day, right?
Yeah, no, it makes perfect sense. I appreciate it.
Ramon, thank you for weighing in. We are up against the time right now, but really appreciate you participating today and asking your question. And thanks to our panelists as well. I guess if I can put a bow on this before we close it up, there's an overarching theme, not just in this roundtable today, but that's been going on for years. When you study what are successful resellers doing, they realize that they don't have to go it alone. Right, they will lean on their vendors, their ISVs, their distributors, their associations, and make sure that those folks can help them in any way that they can, whether it's through the things we mentioned today about marketing or connections or just general education. So before we wrap up, again, big thanks to Melanie, Rick, Bill, and Jason for being our featured guests today. We had an entire slide, you can see it right now, of if we didn't get a lot of audience participation, what we're going to jump into, but you can see we didn't need that at all because of the great participation from the group today. Also, just to let you know, we are going to send to RSP members after this, we have a special slide that we have put together that talks about reseller requirements and vendor requirements that were based on a similar workshop to what we did right here in the past 45 minutes or so. We actually spent an entire morning at an RSPA Inspire event, splitting up the vendors into distributors and them talking what they want from each other, and then they all came together afterwards. So we have a good document put together on that that's been produced through the RSPA Academy. So you'll be receiving that and some other resources after this as well. And again, before we wrap up, thanks again very much to our 2020 Platinum sponsors, BlueStar, Heartland, ScanSource, and Shift4. Really appreciate your support. And again, we want to remind you, if you like this education, if you want more of it, like 20 plus hours more of education about our industry, register for the RSPA Academy Education Symposium, August 26th and 27th. Go to RSPA, gorspa.org/education-symposium. If you get there before August 7th and register, it's only $39. So great opportunity for you to have your entire team attend. So again, thanks everybody for listening today. Thanks to our guests, featured guests, for participating, and thanks to everyone who makes the channel what it is. As we talked about during this conversation, we all definitely lean on each other. We all draw from each other. We're all in this together. Even before COVID, we were all in this together in terms of making the channel as strong as possible. And thanks for everything that you do to make the channel great. Again, on behalf of the entire RSPA team, thanks for attending today's Retail IT Community Roundtable. Goodbye, everybody.